Welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. This is a podcast for male survivors of sexual abuse and assault, whether as a child or as an adult. Know that you are not alone and the abuse was not your fault. My name is Mike Chapman. I'm a certified recovery life coach and also a survivor. Let's find hope and healing together. And welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. I'm your host, Mike Chapman. And with me today, I have two prior guests, Scott Slone and Matt Melvin. And today we have a panel discussion talking about the Epstein Files and how it relates to those of us survivors, how we can respond, what the issues are, and so forth. So, we are recording live. If you are here live with us this evening, a reminder, we will honor your anonymity and we will only state your name if you manually type it in with your question or comment. And if you would like to join us on future live podcast recordings, you can learn more how to do so at the website polarlifeconsulting.com/live. So, let's start talking about the Epstein Files. It's still, I think, the latest. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi was let go, and now we have a temporary assistant DA. I forget what his name is, but he says, we're not going to look at Epstein at all. And other people are saying, yeah, no, you have 30 days. If not, we'll see you in court. You need to respond to this. There's so many stories, just horrible stories, so many rumors that have been circulating about Hollywood elite or all of these things over the last 20 years, all these rumors. There's now proof that all those things that people, oh no, that's ridiculous. No way that would ever happen. Now it's proof that all these things are actually happening. That you scare kids to boost their adrenaline, and then you can take out hormones from them, and then that hormone, stress-induced hormone, can act like a fountain of youth if you inject it into an adult. And that's a thing. And they talked about that. And the scientists who did it. And the emails are there. There was a rumor about Wayfair Furniture Company that there was these really, really expensive items of furniture named after girls. And people thought, no, they were actually, it was codes for ordering girls, literally. And that there's been confirmations of that within the Epstein Files. Other things, cannibalism of human babies and so forth, rumored decades ago, and confirmation of these things. It is mind-blowing. All these things coming to light. Other countries are arresting people. The U.S., not a single arrest.
Zero.
As a result, other than what's her name?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes, Ghislaine Maxwell. Thank
Michael,
you. Yes.
That is the only person who's been arrested in this atrocity. Everybody else
in the
is
US,
walking.
Yes. And there have been firings, people losing their positions and so forth. But so many key players like Wexler, who basically owns half the stores in malls, Abercrombie and Fitch, and Victoria's Secret, and so forth. And CEO of Lifetouch, which is all of the school photography things. Who knew that was actually a menu of girls that they might want to reach? So,
Mike, who was the individual who was at Harvard who was removed? I can't remember the gentleman's name.
Not sure, but I'll look it up and I'll display it on top of the screen. But this Wayfair thing, yeah, that's been confirmed. And they could match up the names with girls who were missing. And yeah, so all of these things are being confirmed with the Epstein Files, and it's just mind-blowing. And that it's so upsetting, so triggering. I think the one positive is it's putting the fact that sex trafficking happens in the U.S. in the public eye. So they are now aware that this is actually happening in the U.S. People are understanding it more. So that's the one good thing coming out of this. So let me hush up. Let me go to Matt and then Scott. What are your views about the whole Epstein mess?
My thoughts are follow the money. That's always been my modus operandi. Follow the money. People lie, numbers don't. We have not seen Bill or Hillary, who we know were on the plane. There are logs of Bill going to Epstein Island. He was wearing a dress at one point, and he and Hillary are walking free.
Right. And them and even Virginia Giuffre, it's rumored they are part of the whole suicide conspiracy list that they are attributing to the Clintons and their power structure. And I was just talking to it. I looked it up on Wikipedia. I think there's officially 19 names on there, but I'm sure a lot more on their list of people who were possibly killed because of them. True or not, I don't know, but yes, that list is growing, and all of this, people who are actively doing this, including Virginia Giuffre, who did die of suicide, said, "I am not suicidal," weeks before her death. Made it very clear she was not suicidal, and then, oops, she died of suicide.
It wasn't suicide, it was murder, Mike.
Obviously.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the individual that was part of Harvard. I don't remember his name, but he has been removed by the executives. And I also want to bring up that fact that there are high-level Ivy League colleges that have individuals that are working at their institutions that are on this Epstein list and need to be absolutely removed. I mean, you're having physical contact with students every single day.
Right, exactly. I know Les Wexler.
That's it,
who
Les Wexler.
Is in charge of it. Oh, he was, yes. He's the Victoria's Secret and all those other stores. And
Fish.
Also on the board of Ohio State University, which, if you follow the news or follow my own podcast, huge sex abuse scandal with the athletic physician for that school and 2 other schools too, it's come out. But over decades, their head athletic director physician was sexually abusing and sometimes trafficking all these athletic boys, convincing them, oh, you can't tell anyone because you'll lose your scholarship. And it was just known, but swept under the rug. But Wexler was a huge donor and on the board of directors and so forth for Ohio State. So it's okay, it's all of these overlapping conspiracies and all these names just keep coming up. It's mind-blowing.
Was Larry Nassar on the list, Mike?
I'm not sure. I know there's a website that links everyone. Let's look at it live. Epstein list. Let's see.
You're talking about the orbs, the spheres of connection. Yeah, that's incredible.
Where's the searchable database? Department of Justice. No, there's a separate one.
It's a private organization that's doing that.
Right, because you can't trust the government. I mean, the government has consistently.
But what they've done is they scanned everything in and then use AI to parse out the names, and then through the emails, through email connections. So it really, I don't know if you've seen it, but the depth of sphere is so great, down to little tiny bubbles. So slight mentions, peripheral stuff, but then it really brings into the core. It's a great visual. They are going to make it public at some point. The name has been slipping my mind since we started talking about different names and things.
Why has it still not been made public? That's my question.
No, public for everybody to be able, because it's software that's being developed specifically for this. So it's kind of it's a beta test for what investigation units can use, the FBI. So it's in development. They just happen to use the Epstein dump as an example of how I think how flexible this software can be in being able to go into huge depths. And if you think about the Epstein files and the millions of lines of text, billions, probably trillions, I don't know, for it to parse all that information out. And then they have some editors that are going through their, working volunteer to move all that stuff around accordingly. So it's pretty insane. It's great technology. The data presented is insane.
Right. This one is @EpsteinGate, great name, .org. And who are we looking up? Nassar, Nassar. Yes. Larry Nassar, 5 files.
I figured. So the government...
Handwritten letter Request form referencing Jeffrey Epstein's alleged sexual abuse in contact with Larry Nassar. FBI evidence in notes, detailed document leaking. Links to Jeffrey Epstein and Larry Nassar. Emails and articles discussing Jeffrey Epstein, Larry Nassar sexual abuse cases. Federal non-prosecution agreement. FBI report details missing mail logs for Jeffrey Epstein at MCC and returned letter to Larry Nassar. FBI evidence check-in notes for envelopes addressed to Larry Nassar. So
the reality is, Mike, the government's known about the Jeffrey Epstein for probably 20, 25 years. Yet now all of a sudden we want all the information. I mean, all the information has been available for probably close to 10 years. So my question is, why is it still taking so long to get everything out? Why is the government concealing names, especially high-ranking names of most likely House of Representatives and senators?
Right, exactly. And I know there are advocates on Capitol Hill on both sides advocating for the Epstein files, for justice, for releasing the names, releasing the files, fighting for that, and they are not giving up.
Right. But I want to also say, Mike, this is not just about Congress. A lot of judges are blocking the release. There's been a judge in Florida that has blocked the release, and then there's another judge in New York that's blocked the release. My feeling is that because we have judges and lawyers on the list, it's like when you go to a golf course. Everybody knows everybody. Lawyers, judges, they all know each other, and senators, and it's just an elite club, and so they cover for one another.
Right. But this goes even beyond that. And the point I wanted to make before, Epstein, it doesn't end with him. He is just another link in the chain. And then there's several people above him feeding him. There's rumors that he was an informant for FBI, CIA, and so forth. So he was getting scoop on their behalf for all these things. In the meantime, he's also blackmailing people for money and so forth. Rooms where a lot of these abuses took place. Tons of video cameras recording everything that can then be used to blackmail. And I've heard of similar things happening in Hollywood, not Epstein specifically, but yes, they will have different sex orgy parties at different mansion, blah, 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 get people to come, record them doing stuff that they wouldn't want the public to find out, and then, oh, blackmail, power.
We just saw it with Diddy, Diddy.
Exactly.
Jay-Z.
Yes. Audience member, this is Steve saying it certainly appears that powerful people are protecting themselves and their friends. Absolutely.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Scott, what would you like to say about all of this?
My thoughts on this are, but first of all, I love this. Like, we're able to sit here and have a conversation about it. So I appreciate this forum. My take is it is also a good topic for Sexual Abuse Awareness Month and Child Abuse Awareness Month. So this is a good topic for it. There are a lot of names. There are a lot of people. I sat in some focus group that was run by ex-FBI or retired FBI, I should say, and then some attorneys and other law enforcement. And this was in Oculus, by the way, so it was fully immersive. We were able to look at all the documents. Yeah. And, or I guess MetaQuest is what they're called now. But I don't know if any of you have listened to the complete interviews of Sacha Riley at all. If you haven't, it's worth a listen. And I want you to understand that the important part of this is that his interviews, he's in hiding now. Best guess is he's trying to find a way into Canada. He was military, and his Substack, I think you can find his interview, but it's also on YouTube. The Substack link is in YouTube for the videos. It's a long series, very intense. I don't know how he's able to give such detail and remain grounded as he is, but he's in the military, so maybe some of that comes from just being in combat training and stuff like that. That said, I believe his interview was in July last year, 2025. Second dump of the Epstein Files came out, and this was the focus group that I was in. some of the things that quite a few of the things that Sasha Riley spoke about before the second dump were actually in the second dump of the Epstein files. And as we were going through all of that content, what became very dysregulating for me is the validity of his story showing up in content that was not available to anybody else at that time. And so to me, it's heavy to listen to, a very serious trigger warning. There's some details, some things that he goes into. He talked about people in, other members of in DC, like Jim Jordan. He does mention Donald Trump. The thing is, for me, is I could only hang in that group for, I think it was in there 4 times, spent about 3 hours each breaking down data and information. Just became too much for me because the evidence of Sasha's story, what's in the documents, really painted a picture to me that the amount of power and connection in this is more than we can process.
Right.
For me, I'll just say for me, it's more than I can process and handle. And I think that would be true for general public, that it is too much to conceive and process. And I think that might have been the intention of dumping so many files out there, knowing that it's going to take forever for people to go through there. Some people are going to be traumatized. Nobody's going to want to get near that. It's better just to not know. And so as a survivor advocate, I think of this month, just to kind of wrap it around here. I think in this month, I was really hopeful that a lot of organizations, some of the bigger organizations, would change their messaging in taking advantage of our entire country's awareness of this issue. Like you said, Mike, it's really the upside of it is there's so much. It's on people's radar. There is a lot of good engagement this year online, but I think there's a lot of the same messaging that's happening. And we're going to be here next year talking about the same thing, the same numbers. It's going to be the same. So where is our window of tolerance?
Right.
And how are we really going to make some change? We can probably dive into the details and the conspiracy and who's connected to who. And that's just an endless vacuum. It's a tunnel that will never complete. How can we take all of this awareness and really keep that gut punch going in our country so that we can move the needle?
Additionally, how can we make sure that this doesn't ever happen to anyone else? That's my biggest concern.
Right.
Because we've seen that history repeats itself time and time again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I looked it up. It's called Don't Worry, Boys Are Hard to Find. It's a series of audio recordings he released in January. But yeah, involving Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, Clarence Thomas, Lindsey Graham, Jim Jordan, and Andy Biggs. Some of those names I don't recognize. But
I think the interviews were done back in July.
Right. Yes. But he released all the audio recordings and very, very detailed, though nothing necessarily verified. Not that any stories could be easily verified. But yeah, there's a lot of on there. Absolutely. So, Matt, how should we proceed from here?
My personal opinion is that the judicial system is corrupt. As a survivor of being in prison twice, being victimized while in prison, I know that putting people behind bars that have mental health issues is not the answer. Meanwhile, people like Tiger Woods, who's driven drunk, he's gotten caught 4 times. We know that he's driven. Right. We know that, when somebody gets caught doing something, they've done it more than that. They just only got caught 4 times.
Right, exactly.
So the issue for me is that there is clearly a different judicial system for me and you and Scott versus the elite, who seem to be able to get away with anything, whether it's Nancy Pelosi and the constant insider trading, making billions and billions of dollars. Guarantee you she'd been there.
Yeah.
Or any of the elites. Yeah. There's just a different set of rules.
And I think that's what's so upsetting. And I think the public is seeing that for what it is and realizing how horrible it is. And whether anything can be done, but I think just the public realizing how bad this is and how deep this goes. And I'm so glad we've got people fighting to not let this be swept under the rug, that this is an issue that will be addressed. And they're going to hold the new DOJ person accountable and say, no, or district attorney, whoever replaced Pam Bondi.
His name is Todd Blanche.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Blanche.
He's the acting director now since Pam Bondi. That's Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General. Is that right? District Attorney?
U.S. Attorney.
Yeah, U.S. Yeah, I'm
Attorney
thinking
General.
state.
Yeah. U.S. Attorney. And he's like, no, we're not addressing it. I was like, no, yes, we are. And he's minimizing it, which is horrifying for all those survivors out there. And yeah.
It definitely puts us in the fight zone, right? We find ourselves more sucked into fight than, yeah.
I think, like I had mentioned earlier, Mike, you have to follow the money. There are people that are telling acting attorney Blanche what to say. And that's the big issue in politics. When you accept money from somebody else, there's always strings attached.
Absolutely.
So whether it's in politics or whether you as an individual need money from someone else, always remember that once you get in contract with somebody else, you are essentially at their mercy. So my suggestion is to not ever put yourself in a precarious situation where you can be blackmailed, or in situations where you are told to do things that you would not otherwise do because you put yourself in a bad situation.
Right. And I'm sure that the new guy was given his talking points, like, this is your talking points. We will not talk about Epstein. We're not pursuing that, blah, blah, blah. He's got his marching orders and he's doing what he's told. But the people are saying, no, we have a case and you have a ticking clock. And yeah, you need to act on this or we're going to hold your tush to the fire. And
Mike, it wouldn't matter.
And they're very, very
active.
If
I made you acting attorney general, you would get the same marching orders.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it doesn't matter who is the acting attorney general. That individual would get orders about what they are to say and what they are not to say.
Exactly. They are not in power.
No.
They are a figure.
Well, power is really an illusion, just like control.
Right.
There's really no such thing as power. God is in complete power all the time.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
I want to...
Go ahead, Scott.
I want to say, I think it will be interesting. I think to see where the country is, it will be interesting to see what the midterms look like. I think that right now there's probably some intention of not, as we know, all of the distractions are out there. But I think coming closer to the midterms, we're going to start seeing more ads, more, on just to remind the public of where we're at so that when they're casting their votes. And I think that, 40% of our country is nonpartisan, right? Or registered as such. It's interesting that there are a lot more, like, at least in our state, I live in a red state, that when it comes to these issues, there's been a lot of people on the right, conservatives, that have been in support of a lot of legislation and things that we have got going on in our state. So that's different. So I feel cautiously optimistic that I think that we're going to see a big change. Now, as we try to oust a lot of these people that, are, holding the Epstein files back or been involved, is that going to solve anything? We're just going to put more people in power, other people, and I think that we're never going to be able to control that. Really believe that probably, and my head's wrapped around the state level right now, but in our country, that we need to do more in making laws tougher so that it's a deterrent for these type of things. I didn't think that it was going to go anywhere because I forget, was it North Carolina or South Carolina representative introduced a bill that would make the death penalty possible for anybody, right? So it overruling the
South Carolina and Florida, and some are doing firing squads and right.
We're talking at a federal level. Yeah. So the Supreme Court has already ruled unless a child is unalived, or I should say, I don't know what you can say on here. I'm used to TikTok language, but
we're not monetized, so we can say whatever we want.
Yeah. So when a child is killed, then you can only seek the death penalty then. What we're saying, and it was taking interest in DC, is that on a federal level, there is some traction on that. I didn't think that was possible. It's going to challenge the Supreme Court. I don't know how that's going to go.
Right. So that if you get caught abusing a child, you could be up for the death penalty.
Right. Because the case is that where, I just look at my own story. There's so many times I could have, any one of my suicides could have been successful. It's a waste of a life. So is it not a death sentence already, for a victim?
It is a life sentence for us, for sure. For so many, especially, there's the small percentage that had the resources, had the parental involvement, were be able to debrief from this and not have lifelong trauma. Very small percent. Kudos to them. Most of us, it's a life sentence, and we are continually trying to heal from the trauma that we experienced.
I personally think that the death penalty should be eliminated, and we should just throw these people into the Everglades. That's a lot cheaper, and you don't have to go through the appeals.
Yeah. Yeah. Or there's this one guy in prison. He's there for like 16 life sentences, and in the past month, he's killed 3 child predators. And it's like, hey, I'm saving you all money. I'm paying back to society so you don't have to support these guys anymore. It's like, okay, part of me, ooh. Another part of me, yeah.
Well, you think about it, Mike, when somebody is on death row, it's so dragged out that they oftentimes
an appeal after appeal, and it's
before they even get to the execution. And the amount of money that the taxpayers are paying to have this administered when there's a lot cheaper.
Mind you, the taxpayer is the person also abused.
Right. Absolutely.
Good point. Yes. Wow.
Sorry to cut you off, Matt.
Louisiana locks up more people than any other state. And the recidivism rate is no lower than any other state.
Yeah, look at the pardons that for those guys that Trump pardoned. How many of them? A handful of them have been caught with CSAM. Others have been SA'd other children and minors.
And I'm trying to get a pardon, Mike, and it's virtually impossible. And right now, there's a pay-to-play that's going on. So a lot of the lawyers are not even getting involved in the pardon process because they don't want to lose their license to practice law and get indicted. Right. It's the whole system is a mess.
Right. Absolutely. Now, one concern, and I think you may have brought it up online, Scott, that if we have harsher penalties for child abuse perpetrators, would they be more likely to, instead of just perpetrate kills, so then there's no evidence, so then they can avoid the harsher penalties that get put in place? So will that make the abuse even worse because they want to avoid the harsher sentence?
That's exactly what the Supreme Court argued. The Supreme Court ruled that was one of the arguments that they brought up. What would this cause somebody to kill the victim? That's possible. Will it end it? I mean, look, I participate in a group where we catch predators in gaming platforms and chats. I've learned a lot. What I have learned is that we have busted several people that have already been charged, already served time. They're out and they're doing it again. And, and that's like not just an anomaly. The recidivism is just, it's something's not working.
I want to also bring up something, Mike. I applied for a job in Maine, and the owner of the business had 12 counts of child rape.
Wow.
So, folks, if you are applying for a job, you need to vet out who you're working for. You need to go onto Reddit, look who your potential employer is, because as soon as I found out this guy was a child predator, I was done. The fact that he is walking around, not in prison, running a company. I mean, where is the public protesting in front of his business, shutting his business down?
Right. That, my favorite coffee shop just a little ways away from me. In Alaska, we have these coffee booths, right? You can drive your car up to either side. And I don't know if that's the same everywhere else, but they're everywhere.
Anyway, near North Carolina. Yeah, that's becoming a thing.
One of the employees, and co-owner that serves the coffee has been convicted, and he's out. He served his time. What is he working with? He's working with young teenagers serving coffee. Like, what the,
When somebody has this prone habit, whatever you want to call it, there is no way to get rid of it. It's not like alcohol where you can just remove it. Once they have it in them, the recidivism rate is through the roof. There's no help for them.
Though there are individuals, and I've met them, where it was like a one-time thing and they regretted it and they got their counseling and they've not done it again, but they still have that registered sex offender thing, and they need to stay away from kids. But I have mixed feelings about that. But there are support groups out there for people, even if they haven't acted on those feelings, but they start getting those feelings that they feel that the term is minor attracted persons, whether or not they've acted on those feelings. And support groups to help them process these things and find the causes and so forth. Hopefully to prevent either actually acting out for the first time or prevent future. And so there's groups actively trying to help these people heal so they don't reoffend or first time offend.
And so to that point, if I can, there's so much, there's a lot of victims. To even back it up, when we think about 1 in 6, right, or 1 in 4 for girls and boys, right? When you think about those numbers, you just have to think that there's probably more than that and perpetrators. Now, there's a lot of public shaming that's happening because of the Epstein files. Everybody participate in lives and things. And anytime somebody doesn't support any discussion against any of the child abuse or anything, people are quick to say pedo, offender, right? And so there's a lot of shaming and miscategorization, first off. Pedophilia versus, what's the other one? It's when you're attracted
and a pedophile.
When you're attracted to
age.
You're talking attracted to kids. It's something. But anyway,
like a phebephile.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
There's like pederast and pedophile, I think.
Because of that shaming, that's a legit. Like, I would feel like I need to point my finger and not give any grace. But on the flip side of that coin, when you're talking about people getting help, how many are really going to get help when there's so much public shame? Somebody found out that a perpetrator is going to a support group for that.
Right.
I mean, so
but just like, AA and all the other support groups out there,
absolutely,
they exist and they honor anonymity and so forth in these groups. So
but AA, I would say, is different than offending on children. But
the idea, they set it up so it's anonymous. You try to ensure anonymity. Photos are discouraged, and all of that. So
I don't think that's in their heads, though. When you think about even somebody going to AA, who's going to find out I'm going to AA?
It is absolutely in their head. I don't agree with you.
Yeah,
Scott.
Yeah. So what do we? I mean, I guess that's the negative of this momentum.
There's so much guilt and shame, regardless of what the addiction is. Going to a support group, I agree with Matt on that.
Mike, I had an addiction to stealing, and I used the 12 steps to overcome that. So, my opinion, and I just did a podcast interview yesterday where the guy was shocked that I used Big Bill's 12-step program and I wasn't an alcoholic. Any addiction you have, those 12 steps can help you overcome it. But here's the thing. It's not just a 12-step and one and done. It's a lifestyle. You have to constantly be in that book. You have to constantly do your inventory. It's not just a one time, check the box and done. We just celebrated Easter. How many people show up to Easter service or Christmas service twice a year and then go back to their regular lifestyle every other day?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Scott, you were saying?
I was just, I was on my closing thought of that is, where everybody's vigilant about, I don't think there's winning on either side, right? We're going to shame and we're going to be angry and we're going to say all of these things and point fingers at anybody that offends on children. And we always have, but I would submit that now with the Epstein Files, that volume's been cranked way up. So for anybody that's sitting out there that is a predator, they are probably less likely to get help. So we're also setting up a culture and an environment that goes against that. But it's just not the season for that. Now is the season, I think, to both barrels and get the message out that, we're,
tolerate it anymore. That's the message.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And a lot of these guys know that we're watching, that when we're that we catch, and they know that there's a potential. Like, we use AI to change our voice into a kid's voice. Sounds very realistic. It's a voice changer. And they always ask the question, are you real? A lot of them ask that because they know that there's these groups out there that do this. But still they take that risk.
So that means
It's just the problem.
They need to be locked up.
Hell yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And we operate within ICAC and the FBI's requirements, like in collecting the data that we need. A lot of these people that do this do not, and they can't be prosecuted. Those cases get thrown out.
Explain ICAC, Scott.
Internet Children's Against Crime.
Well, that's the organization that you are working with.
No. They said you're familiar with. We did the search for to see if our imagery was out there.
Yes, with NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Yes.
Yeah, but ICAC they operate within. I believe ICAC, isn't it a part of that, a branch of that?
Haven't heard that acronym before, so I'm unsure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So anything that is like you would report. So if you know like a child's being harmed online, you report that that information to them, right? You should do that. But if you're catching somebody, they set parameters of what is prosecutable. We can't just have a voice. We can't just have text message. We just can't have a voice. We actually have to have their face, and we have to have them talking. And also we have to. And even though we're calling them every day, like before recording, we have to say the date and time, go through all of that so that it can be, admissible and they can be charged. So it's very tough because attorneys.
I know from personal experience what it's like dealing with attorneys and judges.
Yeah, absolutely. They play the game. A comment from Steve. The issue is complex, but seeing some high-profile perpetrators brought to justice should help, if only a little. Yes, very true. And he also says, Scott, I'm thankful for the work you are doing. Amen.
Let's just talk about what the statute of limitations is, Scott, please.
And it varies state by state, and they're trying to do
that's a whole live of its own. That's a whole podcast of its own.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things I would like to see changed in our state, I don't know. What do you want to know? Because I can go on about how I feel, what needs to be changed.
Well, how I feel is that there should be no statute of limitations, just like it is in murder
cases. Correct.
Just like there should be no NDAs in abuse cases. And that's starting to change as well. If you're in trouble, you cannot ask them to not talk about it, because then you'll just continue to get away with it for other perpetrators.
So the statute of limitations, I don't want to see the value in it. So I agree with you. I'd rather it just not exist at all. I think in order to have the public support that, and maybe this is the season that you could do it. Maybe people aren't going to push back. But in my case, it had been, over 30 years since my abuse happened. But I had evidence, and actually more evidence than I thought that I had, because some things were pointed out to me even by their own defense attorney. I think that the do not believe somebody is such a hard, I have a lawyer that would be great to bring in on this, because there's been a lot of deep conversations. But the thing is that unless if you don't have evidence, it makes it harder to make a case, just flat truth. And that is unfortunate, because it could be 2 years, it could be months, and there's not be any evidence, but it still happened, right?
And individual testimony is not enough to prosecute
It's
in most cases.
The other thing
it's not, but we can do better. We could.
The other thing
Sorry,
I
go
think
ahead.
needs to change is there are some states that are one-party states, and there's some states that are two-party consent states. Vermont is a two-party consent state. And in some states that are one-party consent state, if you record somebody without them knowing, it's a felony.
Yes.
Explain the difference between the one-party consent and two-party consent, because I'm not even clear.
Well, a one-party consent state is I can record somebody without their knowledge. A two-party consent state means I have to let them know I'm recording them, which defeats the entire purpose of
mine. In my state, we don't have to let anybody know that we're recording. It is legal to record any conversation. So when the church wanted to speak to me, this is when I was asking them to help me, and they extended a willingness to help. But I had recorded the phone call because I knew that speaking to them would be triggering, and I know myself that I would lose the fact that I even had that phone call. I would have dissociated from that whole experience. Knowing that, I recorded the call, not with the intent of using it for anything, just so if that happened, and it did happen, I lost part of that whole phone call, which I believe was over an hour. So, but even though I recorded it, the court would still not, if it went to trial, they still would not accept that as evidence. And yeah, because again, like to charge something, was it really the victim care coordinator that I was speaking to, or was it somebody else? We don't have a face. So how do we really know that that was the diocese?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't think that should exist either. If you're facing your abuser and you're collecting evidence, that 100% should be admissible.
Amen.
Right. Yeah. We have to do better. As a society, as a nation, we need to do better. Thankfully, there's people who know what they're doing, who are fighting the fight for us. That's the one positive thing. So encouraged by people on both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, fighting this. Sometimes uphill, sometimes by themselves or with very few support. And they'll throw politics in, like the war on Iran is just because of the Epstein Files. Okay, both can be true. I understand the politics, and so many Iranians really want, especially people who got exiled. And locally, they've been protesting the government for decades. And they really want the regime out.
Yeah.
Timing, don't know. But doesn't mean the Epstein Files goes away. I think there's enough advocacy, enough people speaking up to not let it die. So that said, what can the individual do who's listening? What can they do to help? Matt?
Speak out. Don't stay silent. Speak your truth. Find advocates.
Right. Talk to your representatives, all your elected officials, especially your senators and congressmen representing you on Capitol Hill, letting them know you do not want this issue to die. This is very important. Absolutely. Scott, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with all of the above. I think that if it's easy to get lost in all of the many issues that our country faces, and everybody needs to pick their own battle. But if you're passionate about this issue that we're talking about, sexual violence, child abuse, then you really have to immerse yourself in it. Writing letters and calling your representatives or your senators or your governor, those are good things, but you're most likely going to get a form letter back.
Though they do count heads of how many people are supporting this issue and this
They
issue
do.
and this issue.
Yeah, that's correct. Now, I live in Alaska, so we have to fly to our capital. There are no roads to our capital. So I am very envious of people who live in a state where they can get in their car and they can drive to their capital and knock on doors. And I think that people forget how tangible visiting your elected seats are. And so,
Capital's down in Juneau. Is that right, Scott?
Yeah, Juneau. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and thankfully, Alaska Airlines offers us a constituent fare during session. It's a few bucks less, but it gets us down there. And reach out to your advocacy organizations. Find out how you can volunteer and support them. In this year with this administration, there's been a tremendous amount of cuts that were done. So a lot of these organizations have to reel back. So in order to support survivors, they need money. They need to be able to have the resources to help people. So they're really struggling across the country through this administration. So get out there, help them raise the money, do your part. And gosh, I don't know. I could go on, but put your hands in there. Don't be afraid to get dirty there. Anybody can be an advocate, right? Maybe not a front lines advocate, but you could do your part as an advocate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do your part to advocate, I meant.
Yes. And no other questions from the audience. Thank you for joining us live, all you in the audience. And I think that's it. We'll do more panels in the future. And if Epstein stuff blows up again, I'll probably at least have an episode, if not another panel on this, because this is going to be an ongoing issue. It's not going to resolve anytime soon. It's going to be a couple years before this is resolved. So we'll keep discussing it and pray. This is a messed up world, and this just is symbolic of how messy things actually are. And it's heartbreaking. Don't lose heart. Self-care, do what you can in this crazy world to take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, and reach out to others and help others, regardless of the craziness. Yes.
Thank you so much for this, Matt. It's good to meet you. I enjoyed the discussion. If you ever want to do something focused more on the statute of limitations, count me in. I will show up both feet into that.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. And we'll see you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. If you would like to learn more about my coaching with Polar Live Consulting, where I provide one-on-one coaching and group coaching, both with a focus on healing for male survivors, reach out to me at polarliveconsulting.com. That is Polar spelled P-O-L-A-R. I would love to hear from you. I want to hear your story. If you would like your story featured on this podcast, contact me via my website. If you like this podcast, please rate and review, because that's how other people can find me, and I really want to spread this message of healing and hope to others. And remember, you are not alone. Healing is possible, and the abuse was not your fault. Let me repeat that. The abuse was not your fault. See you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast.